There's a strange thing that happens when you stand before the Great Pyramid. You feel small, yes, but you also feel seen, as if something ancient is looking back at you through the stone. Thousands of years have passed. Empires have risen, crumbled, and been forgotten. Languages have died. Religions have faded into footnotes. But Egypt refuses to disappear. Walk into any museum, any bookstore, any corner of the internet, and there it is. The golden mask of a boy king, the Eye of Horus on a necklace, hieroglyphs tattooed on skin. We wear Egypt. We dream Egypt. We return to Egypt again and again as if answering a call we don't fully understand. This isn't nostalgia. Nostalgia is gentle, safe. What Egypt triggers in us is something deeper, a recognition, maybe even a haunting. Because when we look at those monuments, those gods, those symbols carved in stone, we're not just looking at the past. We're staring into the memory of what made us human. Egypt built something that transcends time. Not just pyramids that defy decay, but ideas that refuse to die. Ideas about eternity, about power, about what it means to be human in the face of oblivion. And those ideas, they're still alive, still shaping us, still whispering. So why does Egypt haunt us? Maybe because what they built in stone, we still build in spirit. If you're drawn to the mysteries that shape the soul of humanity, subscribe. This is Beyond Mythology. Egypt was the first civilization to look death in the eye and say, "Not yet." Other ancient cultures buried their dead and moved on. Egypt did something different. It prepared. Obsessively, ritually, architecturally. They didn't just accept death, they engineered an answer to it. At the heart of this obsession was a radical idea. You are not one thing. You are three. The Egyptians understood the human being as a trinity, the Ka, the Ba, and the Ak. The Ka was your life force, your double, the energy that animated you. The Ba was your personality, your essence, often depicted as a bird with a human head, free to move between worlds. And the Ak was the luminous self, the transformed spirit that could dwell with the gods. Each part required care. Each part had needs, and if even one was neglected, the whole system collapsed. So they built tombs as survival machines. They wrote spells as instruction manuals. They mummified bodies as anchors for the soul. This wasn't superstition. This was spiritual technology. Think about it. They mapped the soul with the same precision they mapped the stars. They treated death not as an ending, but as a threshold, a doorway that, if navigated correctly, led somewhere. And the entire civilization bent itself around that belief. The Nile wasn't just a river. It was a reflection of the Milky Way flowing through the heavens. Life mirrored cosmos. Earth mirrored sky, and beneath it all, the Duat, the underworld, existed as an inverted reflection of the living world, a shadow realm where the sun journeyed each night to be reborn at dawn. As above, so below. That phrase didn't start in medieval Europe. It started here in Egypt, carved into the architecture of their reality. Everything corresponded. Everything connected. The physical and the spiritual weren't separate. They were two sides of the same truth, and here's what's haunting. We still think this way. We've just changed the language. We preserve ourselves in photographs, in data, in digital clouds. We fight aging with medicine. We chase legacy with art. We build monuments, not in stone anymore, but in code, in influence, in memory. The tools have changed. The terror of impermanence hasn't. The Egyptians built pyramids to outlast time. We build servers, but the impulse, identical. We are still trying to survive death. We are still obsessed with eternity. Egypt just had the honesty to say it out loud. Here's what most people misunderstand about Egyptian gods. They weren't asking you to believe in them. They were asking you to recognize them, because the gods weren't distant beings in the sky. They were principles, laws, forces embedded in the fabric of existence itself. To know their names was to understand how reality worked. Ra wasn't just a sun god. Ra was the cycle, the eternal return of light after darkness. The promise that what dies will rise again. Every dawn was Ra. Every ending that led to a beginning was Ra. Isis wasn't just a mourning wife searching for her husband's scattered body. Isis was the force that restores what is broken. She was magic, healing, the intelligence that reassembles chaos into order. When something shattered, a kingdom, a family, a self. Isis was the impulse to make it whole again. Anubis wasn't a demon guarding the underworld. Anubis was the guide, the one who stood at the threshold between the known and the unknown, between life and what comes after. He didn't punish. He prepared you. He was the necessary presence in every transformation. And Horus? Horus was the eye that sees truly, the vision that pierces illusion, the force that confronts chaos, Set, his uncle, the storm, and restores Ma'at, cosmic order. Horus was clarity. Horus was sovereignty. Horus was the self that overcomes. But if we're talking about the god that defined Egypt's entire mythology, we have to talk about Osiris. Osiris was killed by his brother Set. Murdered, dismembered, scattered across the land. 14 pieces, chaos triumphant. The king destroyed, but Isis gathered him, piece by piece, right by right. And when she reassembled him, Osiris didn't return to his old life. He became something else. He became the lord of the underworld, the judge of souls, the god of resurrection itself. This myth isn't about a corpse. It's about integration. It's about being torn apart by life, by trauma, by loss, by the inevitable violence of existence, and finding a way to put yourself back together, not as you were, but as something transformed, something whole in a deeper way. Osiris is the archetype of death and rebirth. Not literal death, psychological death, the death of who you thought you were, the shattering that precedes becoming. And Egypt understood this so profoundly that they built their entire afterlife around it. To pass through the Duat, to stand before Osiris in the Hall of Judgment, you had to undergo your own dismemberment and reassembly. You had to face the truth of your life, symbolized by the weighing of the heart against the feather of Ma'at. If your heart was heavy with untruth, it was devoured. If it was light, you were transformed, made luminous, made Ach. This wasn't theology. This was psychology in mythological form. The Egyptians didn't worship gods to escape reality. They worshipped gods to understand it. Each deity was a lens through which to see the forces at play in your own life. The cycles, the conflicts, the transformations. To worship in Egypt was to study the structure of existence itself. Egypt fell. The pharaohs died. The priests were silenced. The temples crumbled. But Egypt didn't disappear, it went underground. It transformed. It migrated. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, he didn't destroy it, he absorbed it. Greek philosophers flocked to Alexandria, drinking from Egyptian wells of wisdom. Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great Hermes, became the legendary fusion of the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth, god of writing, magic, and hidden knowledge. From this marriage, Hermeticism was born. As above, so below became the foundation of Western esotericism. The idea that the cosmos and the self are reflections of each other, that to know one is to know the other. That's Egypt, reborn in new language. Fast forward, the Renaissance. Europe is awakening from the Middle Ages, hungry for lost knowledge. And what do they find? Egyptian symbols. The Ankh, the Eye of Horus, the pyramid. Certainly these aren't relics, they're keys. Keys to alchemy, to transformation, to the secret architecture of reality. The Ankh, that looped cross, wasn't just a hieroglyph for life. It was understood as the union of opposites, masculine and feminine, heaven and earth, spirit and matter. It became a symbol of esoteric knowledge, worn by those who sought hidden truths. The Eye of Horus, the Wadjet, wasn't just protection. It was perception, the ability to see beyond surfaces, to pierce illusion. Each part of the eye corresponded to a fraction, to a sense, to a mathematical principle. It was geometry and mysticism fused into one image. And these symbols didn't stay in dusty grimoires. They leaked into Freemasonry. They appeared on currency. Look at the pyramid on the dollar bill, the all-seeing eye floating above it. Egypt's visual language became the language of power, of secret societies, of institutions that wanted to signal, we know something ancient. Then Napoleon invaded Egypt in 1798 and brought a team of scholars with him. The result? The Description de l'Égypte, a massive, meticulous documentation of everything Egyptian. Europe became obsessed. Egyptomania swept through art, architecture, fashion. Obelisks were shipped to Paris, London, New York. The dead civilization was resurrected in the imagination of the living. And then, in 1922, Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb. The world stopped. a boy king untouched for millennia, lying in gold. The press called it a curse when people connected to the excavation died. But the real curse was subtler. It was the curse of fascination. Once you looked into that golden mask, you couldn't look away. Hollywood picked up the thread. The Mummy franchise, Stargate, The Prince of Egypt, Gods of Egypt. Some good, some terrible, all profitable. Because Egypt sells. Egypt captivates. Egypt promises mystery, but why? Why does every generation resurrect Egypt in its own image? Because Egypt is the memory of what we want it to be, eternal. Every time we return to Egypt, we're not studying history. We're asking the same questions they asked. We're hoping their answers still work. So here we are, thousands of years later, still staring at the pyramids, still wearing the Eye of Horus, still tattooing Anubis on our skin. Why? Maybe it's this. Egypt haunts us because it asked what we still ask. What happens when we die? How do we preserve meaning in a world that erases everything? How do we balance light and shadow, order and chaos, the self and the void? Other civilizations asked these questions too. But Egypt didn't just ask. Egypt answered. Not with philosophy, not with abstract theology, with stone, with ritual, with an entire civilization shaped around the pursuit of eternity. They built tombs as bridges to the beyond. They wrote spells as maps through darkness. They embalmed bodies as acts of defiance against decay. They turned death into a journey instead of an ending. And their gods? Their gods weren't distant. They were here, in the sun, in the river, in the cycles of planting and harvest, in the storms and the stillness, in the moments of shattering and the moments of restoration. Egypt made the invisible visible. The abstract became architecture. The eternal became tangible. And maybe that's why we can't let it go. Because somewhere deep in the human psyche, we remember that it's possible to live symbolically, to treat life as sacred, to build not just for survival, but for transcendence. We've changed our tools. We've lost the language of hieroglyphs, the precision of mummification, the grand rituals of the priests. But we haven't lost the hunger to matter, to last, to be remembered, to pass through the threshold of death and emerge transformed. Egypt didn't solve the mystery of existence, but it treated the mystery with the reverence it deserves. It took the terror of oblivion and turned it into art, into architecture, into an entire way of seeing. And that is why Egypt still haunts us. Not because it has all the answers, but because it had the courage to ask the right questions. And because it built those questions into monuments that still stand, still watching, still waiting. The sun rises over the Nile. Shadows stretch long from the pyramids as they have for millennia. The desert wind whispers through empty tombs, carrying names that were meant to last forever. And in a way they have. Because here we are, still listening. Egypt wasn't built to last forever. It was built to remind us that forever is what we've been searching for. And maybe, just maybe, we've been carrying Egypt inside us all along. Perhaps the greatest mystery Egypt left us was not how to escape death, but how to live with eternity. Every temple, every god, every line carved in stone was a reminder. Life and death are not opposites. They are the same current flowing through time. We walk beneath the same sun that once crowned their kings. We breathe the same wind that carried their prayers. And maybe that's why their voices still reach us, because eternity was never somewhere beyond the horizon. It was here all along, in the breath, in the sand, in the silence between heartbeats. The Egyptians called it life everlasting. We simply call it the human soul.